Hello, this is Teresa. I'm back with another video tutorial for Rinea. I'm going to be showing you how I created a really cute Valentine's box. I'm using a shoe box for my base for this project. One of the key things to think about is the size of the box. Because Rinea foiled paper is not any larger than 12 inches, it's best to go with a box that is no larger than 12 inches in any dimension. My box is just slightly smaller than 12 inches, so I think it will work well for this project. Now, as you can see, I'm pulling out some freezer paper, and I'm going to use that as my wrapping paper, so to speak, for the bottom part of the box. And I'm using the waxy or shiny side on the inside. And this is a very inexpensive material that you could use, although you could substitute with wrapping paper or anything that you want to, or even more foiled paper if you want to take the time to cut and piece the individual panels for the outside of the box. But I decided I was going to go with a little bit simpler choice for the bottom and concentrate all my decorations on the lid of the box. So once I've sized it to where it's going to overlap so I can wrap it over or wrap it inside the box and secure it, I'm folding in each side and I'm just trimming, as you saw with the scissors, so that I could fold in that first part of the paper towards the inside of the box, and then I'll secure it with tape. Now, in case you're wondering what inspired me to come up with this idea, is I thought back to my childhood whenever I used to go to school on Valentine's Day and we'd need a way to collect all the Valentines from our classmates. I assume that's still a thing these days. I mean, it's been a while since I've had young children, but I believe that still goes on in schools. And I thought this would be a fun project that you could complete for, say, your child in your life, or with your child, or maybe even for a grandchild if you have grandchildren. And then that way they'll have something fun to take with them to school to collect their Valentines in. So anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of wrapping this a little bit like a package, but not quite, because this is an open box. So I've folded the paper so that it will be flush across the top in that corner. And then I do the same thing on the opposite side. So now I'm showing you how it's even with the top of the box. And then I'm pulling this part over in the middle, and then I'll secure that with tape on the inside of the box. It doesn't really matter so much what it looks on the inside of the box, because it is going to be covered with a lid after all, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And just to make sure that I don't have any of the paper catching on the lid whenever I put it on or pull it off, I'm securing it with some additional pieces of just Scotch tape there at the edges of the box. And I'll repeat the process on the other side exactly the same way. But I won't make you watch me do it yet a second time. And now I'm going to move on to decorating the lid for this project. And this is what I'm going to spend the most time on as far as the decorating goes. And you could stamp on the freezer paper and do some other things to it. I elected not to do that today, just to keep this video a little bit shorter. And I'm marking on the inside of the lid where the center is. So I'm figuring out where the center is both vertically and horizontally, so that I can center the little hole or slit that I need to cut on the inside of my lid to allow you to be able to put Valentine's inside of the box whenever it's closed. If you heard a little scratchy noise a moment ago, it was my dog begging to be let out of the room. I swear, when I'm doing a video, can't decide if they want in or out. Anyway, back to the project. I've drawn a straight line across the center of it, and I'm using an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to cut down the center of that. I mean, in the end, it really was not necessary to cut it. Drawing the line, however, is helpful, because I want to make a slit that's about 1/4 of an inch wide, and you can make it as, I guess, as big as you would prefer to make it. I just chose not to make it really big because I wanted more space on the top to decorate. And so even though I go through the process of cutting through that entire thing, I realized that what I really should have done is just use that line as a reference point in order to cut the slit out. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit so that you're not falling asleep watching me trying to cut out the slit out of the box. And now moving on to the decorating of the box, I wanted to mention that there are 12 by 12 sheets available of, I believe, all the colors. I didn't happen to have one because that's what I would have used. It's what I would have chosen to use. But since I only had the 6 by 12 sheets, I thought I would show you how I made that work for my lid. It certainly would be much easier if you had one continuous sheet, but what I'm going to do is create a band over the center of it to cover up the fact that I have two separate sheets of paper. And I do want to leave enough on the edge so that I can completely cover the side, and then I'll have to cut two more pieces to cover the ends of the box. Now I thought I was going to cut off pieces that were large enough, but as you could see, I cut it a little too short, so I'm actually going to have to fix this a little later on in the video. So now I'm about to glue down the first piece of paper that I've trimmed down so that it would fit, and I'm using a double-sided ATG style tape. I find that sometimes this works really good. Other times I have a little trouble getting the tape to actually stick to the paper. So if you do have trouble with that, you certainly can use liquid adhesive. I just prefer to try to use the other if I can, in order to avoid having to wait for the glue to dry, because it takes quite a bit longer for glue to dry with a paper that isn't well, like foil is kind of a slick surface, so it takes a lot longer for wet glue to dry. I'll just put it that way. Anyway, I am gluing on the two sheets starting at the edge on the outside edge of the box, or at least attempting to, and it wasn't working so well, so I'm fiddling with it a little bit until I can get it to stick, and then now I have most of the top covered. And like I said, don't worry about that little gap in the center. I'm going to take care of that by creating a cute little band. So I've gotten the glossy version of the fuchsia foiled paper. By the way, I'm using the fuchsia Starstruck pattern as my base, and I'm going to make a wider gold band because on the reverse side of the fuchsia is the glossy gold color. So I'm going to have the glossy gold as the larger part of the base. So that's about a couple of inches wide. And then I've cut the fuchsia color a little bit smaller. I'm going to say it's probably about half an inch smaller, so it allows a quarter of an inch of the gold to show on either side. And then I'll add some adhesive to that and put that over the center of the box. And now I've covered up that seam. But I'm certainly far from finished with this. And one of the things I need to make sure to do at some point is cut the same hole out of the foil, and I'm going to do it with the lid down so that I don't mess anything up. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife and just using the already existing slit that I cut earlier to cut out the paper. And because there were multiple layers of paper there in the center, I do have to go over it 2 or 3 times to get every layer of paper removed from underneath. So that's why I'm having to go through this process more than one time. And now I'll have a nice clean opening for the top of my box. Now moving on to the decorating part, I've pulled out some dies that I have in my personal collection, so I encourage you to look through what you already have, and even if you don't have the exact same dies that I have and showing in this video, you can certainly still have fun die cutting heart shapes, because there are a lot of different heart dies out there. I'm sure you have something like this in your collection, or you can hand cut your own if you need to. Anyway, because the type of die I'm using, I get both a frame and a solid heart out of these two dyes when they're used together, so I'm going to use both. And I have a couple acrylic blocks weighing down that heart because I used wet glue on it to secure it to the box. And I'm going to trim out these letters. They're thickers, letter stickers, and instead of just pulling the letters right off the packing paper, I'm just cutting the letters that I need to spell out the words "Be Mine," so that I can plan the spacing before I pull them off the backing paper and stick them down to the box. The nice thing about foiled paper is, since it is not porous, it does allow you to be able to shift and adjust the letters if you have to, if you don't get them exactly the way you want them the first time. So as you can see, that's exactly what I did with the letter there at the end. And I'll add some more heart die cuts to the top, and I'll also add some cupids that I cut out using my Cricut machine in Design Space. This was just one of the standard cupids, which you'll see at the end of the video. And now I'm adding the strips that are cut to the correct size to go on the ends of each side of my box top so that it is completely covered. And I'm just using that tape to hold it while the glue is drying because I had to use liquid glue. And there is the completed box. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and until next time, here are a couple of others for you to look at. Thank you.